There is a place on this planet so terrifying, so shrouded in darkness, that even speaking its name sends chills down the spine of those who know its truth. A place where death is not an exception, it's a routine, where 500 men and women are executed every single day, their screams echoing through stone walls like a haunting symphony of agony. This isn't a war zone, it's a prison, and it's been called the Pit of Shadows, the deadliest prison ever created by man, tucked away in the uncharted deserts of a rogue nation, far beyond the reach of human rights organizations and the modern world, lies Kaasar El-Maut, a name which translates to Castle of Death. Officially, it doesn't exist on any map. Governments deny its existence. Satellite images blur its outline. And those who ask too many questions often go missing. But the stories leak, through defectors, survivors, and whispers in the dark. Stories of mass executions, of torture chambers running day and night, and of inmates who are buried under the very walls that held them captive. Kaasar El-Maut was built under the guise of national security. It was meant to house only the most dangerous criminals, terrorists, warlords, and enemies of the state. But over the years, it turned into a dumping ground for anyone deemed a threat: journalists, activists, protesters, even children. No trials, no evidence, no justice. Just chains, concrete, and the constant shadow of death. The structure itself is a monolithic nightmare, an underground fortress surrounded by vast dunes and watchtowers armed with snipers. There are no windows, no natural light, just steel corridors that smell of blood and rot. Prisoners are blindfolded the moment they arrive and never see daylight again. The air is thick with smoke from the crematoriums that run non-stop to dispose of the bodies. Even the guards wear gas masks, not just for protection, but to dehumanize themselves from the horror they enforce. Inside, there is no concept of time, no morning or night, only pain, hunger, and fear. Executions happen on a schedule, 500 per day, divided across 24 hours like a twisted clockwork. Some are public, used to send a message. Others take place behind closed doors, in soundproof rooms where screams go unheard. And those who are not chosen for execution suffer a fate just as cruel: starvation, beatings, and psychological torment designed to break the soul before the body. What makes Kaasar El-Maut so terrifying is not just the brutality, but the system behind it. This isn't chaos, it's calculated. Every death is recorded, every prisoner numbered. It's an industrial killing machine, engineered for silence. Those in power profit from its secrecy, using it to eliminate opposition and instill terror in the hearts of their people outside its gates. Few dare to speak. Families of the missing are told to forget. Journalists who investigate are silenced. The world looks the other way, too afraid or unwilling to confront the horror. But the truth bleeds through, one whispered rumor at a time. And those who have seen it, who have walked the halls of Kaasar El-Maut and lived to tell the tale, describe it with the same word. Hell, this is the world's most dangerous prison, a place where 500 lives are extinguished every single day and no one is held accountable. Welcome to Kaasar El-Maut, the Castle of Death. History and creation of the prison. The origins of Kaasar El-Maut, the Castle of Death, are as mysterious as the walls that surround it. Official records are non-existent, and the few who know the truth either lie, disappear, or die. But from fragments of leaked documents and testimonies of former military officials, a chilling picture begins to form. This prison wasn't just built, it was engineered as a weapon. It is believed that Kaasar El-Maut was constructed in the early 1990s during a period of civil unrest in a Middle Eastern dictatorship that had lost control of its people. Riots broke out in major cities. Dissidents flooded the streets. Revolution was on the horizon. The regime, desperate to maintain power, sought a permanent solution. Not diplomacy, not reform, but fear. They needed a place so dreadful, so terrifying, that the mere rumor of being sent there would silence opposition. Thus, Kaasar El-Maut was born. The construction took only 8 months. Built deep into a desert canyon far from civilization, the prison was designed to be self-sustaining and completely invisible. Dozens of foreign contractors were brought in to construct the facility, but none were allowed to leave afterward. They became the prison's first inmates, silenced to protect the secrets buried in the concrete. Though originally created under the control of the nation's Ministry of Internal Security, power quickly shifted to a covert branch of the military, a rogue paramilitary faction known only as Unit 731Z. This secretive group operated outside of all known laws and answered only to the country's supreme leader. Their mission: crush rebellion, suppress dissent, and eliminate threats without trial, without trace. Kaasar El-Maut became their execution ground. At first, the prison held a few hundred political prisoners, activists, writers, teachers. But the regime's paranoia grew. Soon, anyone could be labeled a traitor. Students with banned books, mothers who spoke out, children who refused to salute in school. Thousands disappeared into the desert. None came back. The world first heard whispers of Kaasar El-Maut in 2003, when a military helicopter crashed just miles from the facility during a sandstorm. International rescue teams were dispatched, but they were intercepted by armed forces and turned away at gunpoint. Satellite images showed strange activity: military vehicles, smoke rising, strange markings in the sand. Then, just days later, the satellite feed was wiped clean. The prison vanished from the radar again, but the myth only grew stronger. In 2007, a guard from Kaasar El-Maut defected and fled to Europe. In a hidden UN debriefing, he described a system of industrial executions, mass graves, and experimentation on prisoners. He claimed that the prison was processing up to 500 executions daily, with bodies burned in massive underground furnaces or dumped into chemical pits. He brought photos, blueprints, and blood-stained documents. But just days before the UN could act, the guard was found dead in his hotel room, strangled, with a warning carved into his chest: "The silence protects us." Since then, Kaasar El-Maut has gained a reputation as the most dangerous prison on earth, not because of its size or security, but because of its purpose. It exists not to hold prisoners, but to erase them, to crush souls and destroy bodies in a place so isolated that justice cannot reach it. And yet, even today, planes fly over the desert and wonder what lies beneath. The ground trembles with the rumble of underground machinery. Smoke still curls into the sky, and every day 500 more names are erased. The world pretends it doesn't exist, but Kaasar El-Maut is very real, and its history is still being written, one death at a time. What happens inside Kaasar El-Maut is more horrifying than any nightmare. Beyond its thick, dust-colored walls lies a world without law, mercy, or hope. A place where time stands still, and survival becomes a cruel game that few ever win. Here, prisoners don't live, they wait to die. From the moment an inmate is dragged through the gates of Kaasar El-Maut, they cease to exist in the eyes of the world. There is no documentation, no prison ID, no official file. Their names are replaced with numbers, their past erased. The guards call them ghosts. For these prisoners, there are no rights, no calls, no trials, only pain. The daily routine is stripped of any humanity. Wake-up happens not at sunrise, but whenever the guards decide to storm into the pitch-black cells, hurling water, shouting threats, and beating anyone who hesitates. Cells are overcrowded, sometimes up to 20 prisoners crammed into a space meant for two. There are no beds, no toilets, just concrete floors, rusted chains, and the stench of unwashed bodies and dried blood meals, if they come, are tossed on the floor: rotten rice, dirty water, spoiled meat, crawling with insects. Sometimes food is withheld for days, used as leverage during interrogations. Medical care is non-existent. Those who fall ill are left to rot. If a prisoner screams too loudly in pain, they are silenced, either with a baton or by being taken away, never to return. Every day, the death quota must be met. 500 executions. It doesn't matter if the prisoners are guilty or innocent. The guards pick them at random, sometimes as punishment, other times simply to meet the numbers. Announcements echo through the prison's old speaker system. Block C, 50 names, prepare them. And just like that, lives are chosen to be ended. The methods of execution are as varied as they are brutal. Some are shot, others are hanged. But the most feared fate lies in the lower levels, where the execution chambers operate in silence. These rooms are completely soundproof, lined with steel, and accessible only by senior officers. Inside, horrors unfold that have never been officially recorded. Acid baths, electrocutions, human experiments, organ harvesting. Each room is a chamber of death, designed not just to kill, but to erase. Guards in Kaasar El-Maut are not ordinary men. They are trained to be merciless. Recruited from broken militias, war criminals, and psychopaths, they are selected for their ability to follow orders without emotion. Many wear masks, not to hide their faces, but to strip away their identity and become part of the machine. They beat prisoners for fun, force them into fights, make them crawl through shards of glass, or simulate executions to break their spirit. Whispers speak of a special unit inside the prison, the Black Hands. These masked figures don't speak. They don't report to any warden. They simply appear at night, take a prisoner, and vanish. No one knows where they go or what they do, but inmates believe those taken by the Black Hands are never killed quickly. Instead, they are used for messages, for practice, for pleasure. Despite the terror, some prisoners try to resist. They scribble messages on walls using blood or coal. They create secret codes to warn others. A few have even attempted escape, only to be captured and publicly tortured as a lesson to the rest. Resistance is always crushed. There are no clocks in Kaasar El-Maut, no calendars, no outside sound, just screams, silence, and the slow realization that no one is coming to save you. In this prison, life is a waiting room for death. And death is not a moment, but a process that begins the moment you arrive. Famous cases and survivors. While most prisoners of Kaasar El-Maut fade into the abyss of anonymity, some stories have managed to leak through the cracks, haunting the world beyond the prison's walls. These are the stories of the falsely accused, those who tried to escape, and the few who lived to tell the tale of the Castle of Death. Each of these cases offers a chilling insight into the darkness that consumes this prison, and the lengths to which the authorities will go to maintain their iron grip on power. One of the most notorious prisoners ever held in Kaasar El-Maut was Adnan Suleiman, a journalist accused of treason for exposing government corruption. Adnan's case became a symbol of the regime's cruelty, as it was clear from the start that he was being used as an example to silence other journalists. His arrest was swift and without reason. There was no trial, no lawyer, and no defense. He was simply dragged into the prison, where his name was erased from existence. While in captivity, Adnan was forced to participate in a series of staged confessions, broadcasted by the state-controlled media, to prove the guilt of any dissenter. These confessions were made under duress, torture, starvation, and mental manipulation, but they were presented to the world as truth. For 6 months, Adnan was subjected to the worst forms of physical and psychological abuse. His body was marked by deep scars, and his mind was broken, but he never betrayed his principles. On the day of his execution, Adnan was dragged into the public square of the prison, shackled and bruised. The regime's message was clear: speak out, and this will be your fate. They had planned to hang him, but in an act of defiance, Adnan spat in the face of his executioner before the trapdoor opened. In response, the guards shot him on the spot, turning his defiance into an even more chilling statement of power. His death became a rallying cry for those fighting against the oppressive regime, though it was quickly silenced. Another infamous case was Mira al-Farouk, a woman who was accused of attempting to assassinate a high-ranking government official. She was brought to Kaasar El-Maut in the dead of night, stripped of her identity, and tossed into the labyrinthine cells. It was later revealed that Mira had been framed, a pawn in a larger political game to eliminate her family,
who had been powerful landowners and critics of the government. The charge against her was fabricated. There was no assassination attempt, no plot, only the desire of those in power to destroy a rival family. Mira's imprisonment was marked by a long and brutal ordeal. She was subjected to weeks of psychological torment, forced to watch other prisoners being executed, and made to participate in shows of false confessions. But what made her case even more chilling was the fact that she managed to escape, or so it seemed. In an attempt to flee, Mira made her way through the prison's narrow, unguarded tunnels, only to be captured moments before she could reach freedom. She was brought back to the main yard, where a group of guards and officers awaited. The spectacle that followed became one of Kaasar El-Maut's most gruesome public executions. Mira was stripped naked, paraded before the other inmates, and then shot in front of them. It was a display meant to destroy any remaining hope for escape. But perhaps the most astonishing story comes from Zaid al-Mohammed, a rare survivor who managed to escape Kaasar El-Maut, though it took him years to break free. Zaid, an artist and political dissenter, was arrested for drawing graffiti that depicted the true horrors of the regime. He was sentenced to life in the prison's darkest corners. For years, Zaid lived in the bowels of Kaasar El-Maut, witnessing the torture of others, enduring the constant threat of execution. However, Zaid had a rare advantage. He was an expert in art and illusions. Using scraps of paper and charcoal, he began crafting maps of the prison's inner structure, maps that he secretly shared with a small group of other prisoners. After years of planning, Zaid managed to escape through a series of tunnels and access routes that had been overlooked by the guards. His escape was a rare victory, and his story became a legend among those who survived the horrors of Kaasar El-Maut. Zaid now lives in hiding, under an assumed name. He speaks rarely, but when he does, his words are like whispers from a world few can comprehend. His testimony about life inside the prison remains one of the few first-hand accounts of the brutal reality of Kaasar El-Maut, and he is haunted by the faces of those left behind, faces he could never save.
These stories, though tragic, remind the world of the horrors that still exist behind the iron gates of Kaasar El-Maut. They are not just accounts of suffering, but of resistance, of defiance, and of the enduring human spirit that refuses to be erased, even in the face of overwhelming darkness, global reaction, and ongoing controversy. Kaasar El-Maut, the Castle of Death, operates under a veil of secrecy and isolation that the international community struggles to pierce. Despite its atrocities, the prison remains a subject of mystery and fear. Few dare to acknowledge its existence publicly, while others are too fearful or politically compromised to take meaningful action. Yet, the truth cannot remain hidden forever, and as whispers grow louder, so too does the outrage that demands justice. The international community, particularly human rights organizations, has tried, though often unsuccessfully, to address the horrors of Kaasar El-Maut. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and the United Nations have all made public statements condemning the prison's existence, but these condemnations are frequently ignored by the regime. The prison is as much a tool of power as it is a symbol of the dictatorship's control. The regime knows that acknowledging the world's disapproval would make it harder to maintain their grip on the population. So, for years, they have rejected all outside intervention, offering only empty denials or claiming that the prison is a fabrication created by enemies of the state. Despite these efforts, many governments around the world have quietly taken an interest in Kaasar El-Maut, particularly as more evidence leaks out of the prison. Intelligence agencies from multiple countries have confirmed its existence, with satellite images showing abnormal activity in the desert region and rare reports from defectors and survivors. However, diplomatic relations with the regime have been too valuable for most world powers to take action. Economic interests and trade deals often take precedence over human rights concerns, leaving Kaasar El-Maut to operate in the shadows. Human rights organizations, often the only voice calling for justice, have attempted to intervene on numerous occasions. In 2010, a coalition of human rights groups led an intense lobbying campaign to pressure the United Nations into investigating the prison. They presented compelling evidence,
including photographs smuggled out by former prisoners, testimonies from exiled activists, and interviews with former guards, depicting the mass executions, forced labor, and inhumane conditions inside. Yet, despite the mounting evidence, the investigation never materialized. Political complexities, combined with the regime's strategic use of its allies, meant that the UN's efforts faltered. The International Criminal Court, ICC, has also been slow to act. While there is no doubt that the crimes being committed at Kaasar El-Maut constitute crimes against humanity, the court faces a significant hurdle. The prison is located in a sovereign nation, one that has repeatedly blocked any attempts by the ICC to enter its territory. To make matters worse, the government at the helm of this regime has never been formally recognized by several major powers, which complicates the process of holding individuals accountable for these atrocities. The issue of accountability remains one of the most frustrating aspects of the controversy surrounding Kaasar El-Maut. The prison operates without oversight, and the authorities who run it are untouchable. Those responsible for the thousands of deaths are shielded by a wall of political corruption and fear, and no one has been held accountable for the atrocities that occur within the walls of the Castle of Death. But despite these setbacks, hope is not entirely lost. There are still those who continue to risk everything to expose the truth. Whistleblowers, defectors, and journalists, often at great personal risk, are working tirelessly to bring the world's attention to Kaasar El-Maut. Leaked documents continue to surface, revealing more about the prison's operations. Activists are raising awareness through underground networks, working with political allies to apply diplomatic pressure and mobilize the international community. But the road to change is long, and each step forward is met with immense resistance. The regime has made it clear that they are willing to do whatever it takes to protect their secrets, even if it means silencing those who dare speak out. With the prison's location isolated in a remote desert, and the regime's complete control over its inhabitants, the executions show no sign of stopping anytime soon. The question remains, will Kaasar El-Maut ever be shut down? Will the world's outcry ever lead to meaningful change? Or will the executions continue unchecked, day after day, as they have for decades? The answer, tragically, is still uncertain. As long as fear and power keep their grip on the country's leadership, and the world looks the other way, it seems that the prisoners of Kaasar El-Maut will continue to die in silence.